Blackopolypse.
Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, of course. You can see me talking. You can see me talking, but you can't hear me talking, and that's the thing.
That's it.
Cool way to start the show. Hey.
Welcome to sorry, what was that?
That was such a cool way to start. That's pretty cool.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, man. Oh yeah. That's we always have to have the music to start off with.
We have a little dance, you know. Let's get warmed up.
We have to drop the beat. Anyway, welcome to Blackopolypse. Oh man, I'm sounding like Simon, ain't I?
Welcome to Blackopolypse. I mean, yeah, man, that's it. I'll do it.
No, it's Blackopolypse podcast media now. That's what it is. With
okay.
The Horsemen crew, I guess. What was that, Nigel?
I think I froze then. You know, I might have to jump onto my own phone, but I'll see how I go for now. Right,
yeah, it's okay. Anyway, so what we established is Rutendo.
Rutendo.
No, it's Rutendo.
Oh.
It's not at the end.
There's an O at the end, but it's ah.
It's not, is it?
Ah.
Hey, look, man, Nigel, you don't make the rules, okay?
You told me your name. Is it Rutendo?
It's Rutendo with an O.
Oh, Rutendo. Oh, sorry. Hold on, let me just clean out my ears.
Slick.
Why?
Anyway.
All right, then, Rutendo. I do apologize.
Okay.
So anyway, today we've got Nigel. Nigel's the guy with the white t-shirt. We've got Simon. Simon's the guy in the kind of like a burgundy pink
t-shirt.
Is this going out? Is this going out in black and white?
Oh yeah, good question. No. Hey, anyway, we got Rutendo. Rutendo is our special guest from South Africa, and that's great because I've been searching for someone who could tell us a little bit about the motherland for a while. And I know you said that you're not the last word, obviously, of what happens in Africa. But we're just gonna ask you some simple questions and let us get your perspective because it's not normal for us to speak to someone who's in Africa directly. You know what I mean? That doesn't happen much for Europeans, especially European Black people or Pan-African people, if that's what you want to call us. So
we do tend to speak to a lot of Black folk in the US and in Europe, obviously. So it's not like we don't speak to Black folks when we're talking about Black issues and stuff, but it's just that in general, we talk so much about Africa as a continent and individual places within Africa, but we very rarely get the chance to get guests on from Africa, and we've probably got a barrage of questions, so make yourself comfortable.
Fantastic, but massive disclaimer, like just please remember, I'm not the poster child representation of the entire continent, just putting that out there.
You have your own South African experience, right?
Eh?
You have your own South African experience, so you can only...
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, of course, I want to start off with my stupid idea. No, the stupid thing I always say at the start of the show, I always call me something stupid. And this week, I've had an epiphany. Hey, listen, I was listening to this, this song. It's actually currently, it's been number one for a long time. It's not number one anymore, I don't think. It's somebody to hear, somebody to love, somebody to...
that is beautiful.
Yeah, I know. My rendition is terrible, but you know the song.
Tune, man, big tune.
I don't even know what tune you're on about, brother.
Oh, let me wind this one up. What's the words, Ray?
You need somebody to... I need somebody
so.
to love, somebody to hold,
somebody
to know. You know the song.
I don't know that song, man. Seriously.
Oh, man,
what with that perfect recreation?
If I'm honest, I don't listen to much radio apart from when the wife's driving, so I don't hear these new tunes unless I decide to. But now I haven't heard that. I don't hear pop music in my eyes.
No, basically that song is that. Remember Maya He? I think Rutendo actually picked up on that, and that's what I realized. It's just Rutendo. It's that song Maya He, Maya Ho, Maya Ho. But that that song that was popular just recently. That one with the guy with the raspy voice, man. He's like, somebody to hold. I just wanted to say somebody to hold. It's exactly the same song. I know. I'm sorry,
Take your
guys.
headphones off. Take your headphones off, Nosh.
Can I mute you?
Sorry, Rutendo.
Rutendo.
Now that you say that, it actually, you can hear the similarities, but I didn't
Yeah.
actually know
But a lot of hit records have got the same composition behind all the flow. You know that. You guys are musicians, man.
But yeah, but I just wanted
to pop music is created. It's a format. It's a formula.
Yeah, I just wanted to point it out, though. You know, that's the.
What was he pointing out? Oh, it was similar to that.
Well, yeah, I pointed out that pretty much the same song, and that musicians will continue forever to rip each other off and say that was my song and I made it. But actually, all of these stole the melody, and then recovered it, repackaged it, and said, "Yeah, this is my song." Which, not to diminish how beautiful the song is, because it really is nice, but. It's just one of those things, and that's.
You saying that, I didn't really appreciate Motown until I became older and started to go into more weddings where they seem to play Motown, especially certain people's weddings. And I started hearing these tunes. I was like, hold on a second, Biggie Smalls didn't mix this, or Big Daddy Kane didn't mix this. If you think about it, the most original music, I think, in terms of original, is probably from the 40s to the 90s, just before.
No, that's too far. I would say the 40s.
Because the thing is, what you got to remember is they had to play this stuff on instrument. There's none of this electronic.
But 80 after the 70s. After the 70s, it was like electronic music coming in. So I would say it's the 40s.
Yeah,
40s. Like the 40s.
I would say the 70s is. I reckon. Yeah, original music was always championed. I mean, there was always people recreating. I mean, like you only have to go and look at someone like Beethoven, and people were reciting these symphonies like straight back from pretty much the time when he was probably still alive, let alone when he was dead. So like, we've got a history of doing that. But what happened, like Alstallio said, is sort of in the 70s, there was basically digital, well, not digital, there was analog sampling that happened. So when people started to take bits of actual other songs and sort of put them in their own tunes, before that they maybe would have played the instruments and recreated it. But what they do in the 70s, and again a lot in the 80s, especially with like a lot of sort of urban dance,
electro.
Yeah, these kind of things. Yeah, it was a big change in music, and I think now what's happening is that the music that's created, and I mean this is down to opinion, I guess, but with the way music's created now, modern music doesn't have the same appeal. If it isn't ripping anything off, it just doesn't have the same sort of appeal, and people are just as susceptible now in this day and age to the classic tunes that we had when we was growing up and what we heard. So that, when you listen to something like Regulate by Warren G and you hear that start, the start of a tune coming, you love that. Now that tune's big, like someone did a modern tune with that in the background, or something like, in England, we had Stormzy do a cover, and he had the song Dirty Cash in it, that Money Talks.
Money Talks. He killed that song, didn't he?
Yeah, they do, and they do. I mean, you even had the Crazy Frog doing Axel Foley and that. Axel F and stuff like that from the 80s and that. So
kill the song, man.
Exactly. So a lot of our songs, I mean, they have been ruined by modern people, but at the same time, I think it just shows how good our music is. The fact that the songs that are not being sampled now are not songs from like the early 2000s. We're talking like classics, like you mentioned earlier, Motown tunes, funk tunes. Funk's really in at the moment.
Man. Some of them Motown songs, man. Boy, serious, man. I'm talking from the soul, from the soul.
Isn't that also just a time period thing? Because and generational, because anyone could say, look, music from even before the 70s, people could go into the 60s and the 40s. It's just kind of like where you're born and what generation of music we're in. So like my younger sister is 7 years younger than me, but she can still play whether it's a Motown track or like a jazz track, like listen, like Madonna, like from Madonna, like original tracks. Belong to them only because she's within the same generation of my parents who even listen to that kind of music. But also like on the classical music side of things, so like I grew up, like I'm classically trained and grew up listening to a lot of classical music. Also Beethoven was black.
Wow. Beethoven's black.
Did you not hear that? That we were like, Beethoven was black.
No one told me that.
We must look it up. Beethoven's black.
Let's say mixed heritage.
I'm going straight on Google now.
But even like listening to like classical music and stuff, like if you listen to instrumentals of like incredible pieces, or like I listen to a number of film scores, if they were kind of just written in a pop version, or you take a famous pop song or hip hop song and you put a classical spin on it, suddenly people are like, oh, this moves me in a different way. It's just the way that instrumentalists or musicians interpret music.
Yeah. And the listener also as well, and the listener. Because like you say, what will probably tend to happen is, especially if you've got unintentional bias, or, you know, we're talking a lot about racism recently in the news. How many, I want to say white folk, how many white folk would hear a tune, not realise it's a black tune because a white artist has done a cover of it? You know,
God, that's gone on for years, man.
Yeah, so like it's the money thing, like, you know, sometimes I'm not trying to go on. Oh man, don't even get me started with the
Beatles too. The Beatles too.
The father of rock and roll. I mean, come on, give me a break, man. Like, seriously, I mean, like, I ain't gonna discount the man's credentials, like, as in being a hell of an artist, but geez, it was about 30 years before that. I'm sure rock and roll was going basically not in the 40s.
A lot of what he
early 40s
brought into it was what he'd seen the coloured people doing at the dances that he'd gone to and watched. So you know what I mean? He's like, yeah, man, these guys can move, man. That's why the white folk loved him, because he could dance. He dispelled the myth for them.
But I couldn't love us for it. It was like, nah, man, we need a white fella to do this, man. But do you know the thing is, the beautiful thing about it, because I don't want to go on like a negative thing about race. We've got plenty to us probably to do with probably race and apartheid and stuff like that. We'll probably get onto a bit later on. But like, in terms of like appreciation, I think one thing that anybody on any side walk of life will appreciate is that white people really do love black music. They love it. Even if they can't stand black people, they love it, and they will play it on their own if they have
culture in it.
Love our music.
You know what it is, though? You know what it is? If you think of like the classical tunes from what would have been, I don't know, from the eras, the Middle Ages and that, they didn't have drums. It was all like ting, 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 ting. You went to Africa and you hear it. And people are shocked. People are shocking out, you know. They thought to themselves,
hardcore as well.
I could wear like 2 steps, then stop, then turn, then 2 steps, then pop. These men got drums, and what we didn't realise is that the drum was how you dance, because you just followed the beat, man. But they couldn't get their heads around it. What's this beat I keep hearing? Ooh.
Hey, I got a story for you, actually. Do you know that when obviously when the Africans went to America, and the white folks were like, "What are these guys do, man?" You know, because they took the drums with them, and they took all the drums away, and that's how they created tap dance. You know that?
Okay.
Tap dance was a different variation of drums, man. That's why they could do so good. So when you guys look at TV watching a white dude do tap dance, it was actually invented by
some amazing black tap dancers, man, and it was big, especially in America, like I say, especially in the South and stuff like that. It was huge, and I encourage anyone who actually hasn't watched early, say, 30s or 40s tap. Like, that's when it was probably the heyday, probably in the 50s actually, and it was still very, very big, and it inspired people like Fred Astaire and a lot of white sort of people to take on tap. And if you go into any sort of classic dance studio these days, tap will always be on this curriculum, because, you know, it's always, you know, ballet, jazz, tap, you know, and whatever. Tap is so instrumental because the footwork involved sets you up so well to do any other form of dance. It's just literally like you say, it's learned, and it has come from our culture, and I think that's an amazing thing to celebrate alongside many other things. Yeah, man.
Rutendo, can I ask you a question? You said you was classically trained. You're classically trained piano player, I guess, pianist.
Flautist. Flute.
Oh, okay.
Wow!
You ever play Pavan?
Did I ever play?
You never played Pavan?
Like Parshabel's. Is it Parshabel?
No, not
that's canon.
That's canon. No, Pavan. Wait, I'm gonna. You don't know what it is?
No.
I'm gonna see if I'm gonna see if I can quickly
Oh, that sounds terrible. What? Put it in a normal piano sound.
Can't you hear it?
Literally piano.
I'm playing the piano. I want to see if I can play it.
Nichols in this chat.
Oh,
Yeah.
I haven't played it so long, man. I can't remember it, but you know this song.
Yes.
That's how some love story film from back in the day.
Maybe, but it used to be that was a song I was asked to play in school with my teacher, and it was with flutes, you know, and the women would play the flutes, and I was playing the piano, like, that was back in the day.
Wow.
Okay, that's great. Anyway, let's move on to our guests, because you know we're born with music, and music's not interesting, especially this week. We got a woman from Africa here, man. What we want? Oh, South Africa, sorry. Actually, this is the first time we can actually say we got a woman in Africa. Yeah, but the thing is, a lot of people, like you said earlier, a lot of people will just generalize and say, yeah, Africa, I've been to Africa. Although they've been to Tanzania, they've been to Senegal, they've been to Gambia, they've been to Mozambique. Now we've got a woman who's actually from South Africa, so we can actually use the word Africa to describe where she's from, as opposed to most cases you should say, I actually went to, I don't know, Morocco or, I don't know, Togo.
Wherever.
Anyway, sorry?
So I'm born in Zimbabwe, raised in South Africa. So
okay.
I'm not within the entire continent, but yes, I am on the south side. I'm very south of Africa.
Zimbabwe. Was Zimbabwe Rhodesia?
South, they named it South Africa.
Yeah, correct.
Rhodesia, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was Zimbabwe, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Zaire was, where was Zaire now? Was that
Congo?
I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure Zaire was Congo.
I'll look it up.
Yeah. Anyway, I've got to jump in with a question straight away, actually, if you don't mind me cutting into your thing, because you just said that you have Zimbabwean heritage. I've got a lot of Zimbabwean friends, but I was speaking to a mixed race girl, and she has no Zimbabwean heritage. She has an adopted, her father was sort of adopted, but he was from Zimbabwe. He was from Africa, but not Zimbabwe. He wanted to give a strong name that represented a strong female, obviously female name, but an African name as well. And the name that he chose was actually a Zimbabwean name, and it's brought her a lot of attention because basically what's happened is people have said it's disrespectful for her to hold this name. And I was wondering if you knew about this name and if you could tell us anything about it. But her name is Nahanda. Nahanda. Apparently this Nahanda was like a historic figure in Zimbabwe. I don't know if she was like a queen or empress or something like that. And people say that if you almost say her name, it's probably equivalent of saying, you know, Jesus Christ to somebody and to a Christian in the UK maybe, and they're taking it offensive. But apparently, yeah, she's received a lot of attention, good and bad, just because her name is Nahanda, and it's a Zimbabwean name apparently.
Very
maybe Alstallio can have a look.
I did not know that, but I'm going to look that up. Interesting.
Cool.
No, I cannot answer on that.
That's all right. That's cool. But yeah, it was just a quick question. Sorry, Alstallio.
But I will say, I mean, like on the naming of children or names have a lot of meaning in a lot of African countries. Definitely in Zim, definitely in South Africa, there is a lot of weight that your name carries. You'll find even with a lot of Zimbabwean people born from Zim or who are named, who have Shona names or Ndebele names, there's usually a story behind it, which I think is the beauty of it. So you'll find like Zimbabwean names, some of them are like directly translated. So, I mean, my older sister's name is Tatenda, which means thank you. My name is Rutendo, which means we are thankful. Some Zimbabwean parents will name their children the English equivalent of the name they would have given them. So it'll be like, you know, Loveless or Lovemore. Very interesting and intriguing names.
Like Promise. I heard someone called Promise and stuff like this.
Yeah, but they're
Good Luck as well is one, you know, that I heard, you know.
You know what I mean? These names are here. But it's so beautiful because I think it's attached. Names aren't just given. It's not like, oh, I think this name is a pretty name. There is actually a lot of meaning behind the names, and you carry that as you live, as you walk in your life. You carry the meaning of your name as well.
Okay, that's so cool.
No, I actually named my daughter Shani. That's a pretty it's a Swahilian origin. Do you speak Swahili in South Africa? Does it have a variation of it at all?
No, so there are 11 official languages in South Africa, and Swahili is not one of them. But The Lion King features Swahili. Not stayed in South Africa.
Isn't that fake though? It's not Hakuna Matata, isn't it? Hakuna Mazuzu.
Hakuna Matata, actually, yeah, it means no worries. So in Tanzania, they speak Swahili.
Yeah, that's where I got it from, because I've been to Tanzania, and they said, well, a girl I knew spent a lot of time in Tanzania.
But quite often actually, like literally, like they're just, it's so relaxed, they're so chilled. Well, on Zanzibar, not necessarily.
Yeah, Zanzibar, yeah. Actually, all of it, to be fair, it was nice, man. I love that. So you got 11, actually answer one of my questions, 11 official languages. So can you name me some of these languages? English, Afrikaans, I believe is one of them.
Afrikaans.
English, I can't name them all, but English, Afrikaans, Xhosa, Zulu, Swati, Pedi. I forgot the rest.
You speak all 11?
Is that the one with the clicking?
Okay.
The Xhosa, is that the one with the clicking when they talk as well?
Yes, yeah. Xhosa has a lot of clicking. The African language, there's so much beauty in African languages, I'm not going to lie.
Sure.
Someone born in Zim, raised in South Africa, I can understand Shona and speak very broken Shona. I can understand minimal Xhosa and next to no Zulu. And Afrikaans, because I mean, it was part of our education system in South Africa to learn Afrikaans. Though I think they should have switched that up with like an African language, because
sure.
You know, culture and preservation of, especially of languages and of culture. As one progresses and proceeds, the one thing that I feel we don't hold on to enough is culture, or that we don't teach enough of is culture. And eventually you end up only doing things in the context of being in a specific cultural setting, and then it's oh, now what we do. Whereas I feel like, especially on the educational side, if you can take that up until matric, like the way I know Afrikaans, only because I had to take it up until matric, I would have loved to know Xhosa or Zulu up until that point, as opposed to Afrikaans. But yeah. So,
may I ask a question leading on from that? So my question, I was going to ask a little bit about apartheid in South Africa, but one thing I wanted to definitely find out about is more after, obviously, black people got power back, or is it ANC that got power back? Is that, did I get that right? Which is the party that got power back?
Yeah.
Was it the ANC?
Yes, the ANC.
Okay, so when they got power back, and obviously, I'm guessing that a lot more black people got into politics and got, not just Nelson Mandela, but I guess there was more black representation in government. Did that sort of change what was being taught in the schools over there? Because I could imagine that they had a very British curriculum that was teaching even history the whitewashed way, I would say, where everything was discovered and nobody was ever killed or pillaged or anything like that. And did that change, and was there more African or black African subjects or emphasis on black history?
So you've frozen a little bit, but
sorry.
You've all frozen. Oh, now you're unfrozen. Sorry, you were frozen a bit.
Did you hear me okay though?
Yeah, I heard you perfectly fine. Okay. Just let me know if I freeze on my side. But essentially, so during apartheid, there was Bantu education, which was taught to black people, and then there was normal education that was not normal education, the education that was taught to white people, and in those schools. After 1994, basically, when after apartheid, the education system, some of it, because remember, this is kind of like systemic, like it's in the systems and in the curriculum. It's not something that changes overnight. You're even finding now, like it's 2020 now, and a lot of the things that were inherited in certain education systems you still see. So you still have, for example, Afrikaans taught up until And don't get me wrong, like there's nothing wrong with Afrikaans itself. But what I'm saying is, like, in comparison, if we're talking about equality or decolonization of an education system, that hasn't happened. And you'll find even through a number of the protests that have happened in South Africa on a university level, with fees must fall, where students were protesting, yes, high fees, but also the to decolonize the education system, the way that things are taught, how things are taught, even representation of teachers. Even if you look at the representation of teachers right now in schools, whether it's your Model C schools to your private schools, the representation is, there is no representation. You would have even found, I know definitely, like when I was in primary school, Xhosa was actually taught by a white teacher. And you'll find, you need to ask, who are the teachers of color? Who are the black teachers? Yeah. How many black teachers are in those schools? How many teachers of different race are in those schools? And then what subjects are they teaching? Yeah, that's the other question. Yeah. Are they teaching life orientation, and are they teaching the languages, or are they actually teaching, the maths and the sciences? Because they are qualified to do so, but are they given the opportunity to be in those spaces? I think one thing that people also often overlook is understanding that representation to see is important. Representation for the sake of representation, that's not the purpose of it. It's, you need to be able to see. If the only way you've ever engaged with a certain race, when it even comes to schooling, if the people who were black were only ever your cleaning staff, like psychologically, what does that do to you as well?
Of course, yeah.
To be able to see, yes, I had a science teacher that was black, I had a math teacher that was black. That's great. And it kind of like takes away the thought that you can only be X or only be Y, as well. And that's across sectors. That's in every single industry, in every single sector. It comes down to the battles we're fighting on race and on gender and on being seen, and in certain communities, it keeps coming up. I don't know if that answered the question.
Absolutely.
I do have a question. Sorry, quickly, Nigel. Hold your thought. Okay. Were your teachers African born? I mean, South African born, or were they just like imported from Europe? Because when you think they're white people, you think, were they just like if you go to Thailand and stuff, the people who are teaching English are always Europeans and never the Thai people? Okay, that makes sense. But I'm guessing in Africa, South Africa, you should have African people teaching like African history, for example, or African language, or you know what I mean?
Yeah. Did you say were they imported?
Were they imported? Yeah.
So difficult. I'm answering to the best of my ability. Okay. So no, our teachers were not imported.
I did say imported and not important.
The thing is, man, what you got to remember is, how can you import someone into a country that speaks a different language from a country that doesn't speak that language?
Yeah, well, the thing about it, South Africa is run by the Dutch, wasn't it? A lot of Dutch influence. So Afrikaans is a language that's spoken in both countries, and English too, So that's why it's they could have just said, okay, we're going to get a load of English people to come over and start educating the Africans, and same with the Dutch. The Dutch who went over there and caused loads of problems. And then they're like, yeah, we're trying to educate the African people, civilize them, even though it's all bullcrap. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Was that a question or a statement?
That was a statement.
It was a statement, but it had a question inflection at the end, so I wasn't
sure. Yeah. Well, like I said, so the people weren't brought over to teach you guys. It was basically like the white people who were teaching you. Yeah, they were like South African white born.
Yeah, South Africa.
All right, cool. Nigel, did you want to say something?
I forgot what it was now.
Oh, no.
Sorry, I'm going to jump in because obviously...
Guys, these are so intense questions. I thought you were just going to ask me like what my makeup routine is.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
The tips, girl. Share them tips.
We've got some serious questions.
We try and educate the people. I mean... It is kind of a form of education.
If you're looking for, definitely when it comes to history, I think there is important of importance to listen to discussions and conversations, yes, but also just like research as well and reading.
Let's switch things up a little bit, and because you run a podcast business, don't you?
I do. Hallelujah, something I can answer.
So what inspired you to start doing a podcast business?
This is now I don't know how to answer this question, because I'm always on the other side of these questions, so I'm always prepped. I'm like, I've got my 30 questions. Let's do this. So I started podcasting in 2016.
Okay.
I'm lying. I'm a word erase that. I started podcasting in 2018. I've been podcasting for 2 years. So August 2018, in South Africa, we celebrate Women's Day on the 9th of August. And so we have Women's Month in August. And oddly enough, my background is in journalism and writing, and I've done some TV production stuff, but nothing in audio. But I've always been incredibly passionate about audio and about conversations from my journalism days. And so it's many things, that brought me to my journey of podcasting. But on the one hand, I'd listened back to some of the conversations that I had recorded and was just like, oh, wait, no one's ever going to listen to these conversations, and it's so much better than what you can hear you can hear the emotion and that you miss when you read something. Yeah. And then on the other hand, I listened to a number of sermons in podcast form. I always have, or just listening to the audio, and I'd be listening to podcasts, and I thought, like, this is really cool. So that's like on the one hand. On the other hand, I was having all of these interesting discussions with people in their 20s. Yeah. So and it was always around, like, we found ourselves in this space where we were having quarter-life crises, questioning stuff, and in different circles of different friendships, I found the same theme coming up, like, we're having quarter-life crisis and we don't know what to do, and we've lost our purpose, and who are we in the world? Yeah. And I kept on saying it'd be so amazing if someone could record these conversations, and then I started recording them, and I called the podcast in my 20s. So that was my first podcast. Okay. And yeah, now I run 3 podcasts under my podcast company, which is called Teensway Media. So we still have in my 20s. I'm turning 30 this year, so I'm going to probably start looking for another host soon for that. Then I've got my client-based one, which is called Biz Community, and that's a business-based podcast focusing on marketing.
Oh, wow. That's brilliant.
So for you, Nigel, just quickly, if you're looking for a host, I'm always looking to leave England. If you're looking for a marketer, Nigel's your man.
He's a shout, man. He's a shout. So you run 3 podcasts, and you also have a business which does podcasts for clients as well.
So my podcast houses the 3 podcasts that I run.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's me under a business housing the podcast. And then under my company, I also do like podcast training. We've just released our first digital magazine, official digital magazine.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah,
which I've read half of it already. I was trying to finish it before we got on, but I didn't have the time.
Fantastic.
Oh, good. It's a couple of you've got some time, so don't stress about it. But the thing about podcasting is in the US and the UK, like there is so much information, and jump on a call or a Facebook group, like how we connected, and find podcasters in South Africa and even on the rest of the continent. It's so difficult, and finding those statistics so difficult. Yeah. So while there are these pockets of groups, I'm like, but why don't we just start something where I can be like, where I can promote other people's work, but also like learn from people.
Yeah. Fantastic. I've got a couple of friends who run podcast businesses. And it's a growing market, and hence this is why Wayne's doing what he's doing. But that's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing actually. What we're doing here in Blackopolypse is we're trying to get people like you, obviously, because what happens when you come into our podcast, you tap into the European market. You know what I mean? And when we go into your podcast, we tap into your South African market. And for me, it's important that we're in Africa. We have a presence in places like Africa and Black America, and I guess countries where they don't speak English is a bit stupid, but
what? Just later.
I think we don't speak. Sorry? Sometimes, yeah, that's the thing. I think at some point we're a bit further along down the line, then maybe we can offer, get people to translate the videos, but as long as we don't speak. I mean, I speak German and I speak some Portuguese along with Simon. But at the moment, we couldn't really I could do a pure German, which I have done. Actually, I do a pure German podcast, but yeah, it's one of those things, I guess.
The thing is, man, you just focus on the market that is the easiest to hit. So English all the way, you know what I mean? Unless you're getting £1 million a month and they say, come translate it into Portuguese, focus on what you do, man. You know what I mean?
It's a good way to look at it, yeah.
How long have you guys been podcasting for?
Sorry?
How
long have you guys been podcasting for?
When did it start? Okay.
It's about 8 months now. So, I mean, it's not the first time. Like, we're kind of like... Well, I've been in the media for a long time. I had a radio station for 3 years, I believe. It was about 2.5, 3 years before I went to Brazil. So I've always been doing something in this kind of direction. And now I just decided I've tried to round up the few people I know who are intelligent enough. And I said, let's do a podcast. And I kind of like forced them every week to get online with me and do it. So yeah, we're about 8 months in now.
Cool. And how have you guys found it? Like from starting up until now?
It's had its bumps in the road.
The biggest thing you've got to. It's about growth, isn't it? And I think, in fairness, and Wayne won't be saying this, Wayne has had his marketing head on.
That's the only thing that lacked in it.
He's had his creative head on. So what we've done recently is kind of put together a strategy which is designed to kind of grow the numbers. Because I suppose 8 months along, I mean, I don't know what the download numbers are or anything, but I suppose ultimately with a podcast, what you want to be doing is turning it into a brand. So you can supply merchandise, you can go and get advertisers, you can spread an important message and it resonates around the world. So I suppose the long-term goal for any podcast is to kind of get there. But as I say, because Wayne didn't have his marketing head on when he started, and because he does about 8 podcasts a week.
3.
It feels like 8.
4.
Whenever Rutendo, whenever I give him a list of things to do, he always says, when did he send it? When did he send it? I sent it by email, I sent it by WhatsApp, I sent it by Facebook message. When did he send it? It's like his eyes don't see that.
I put that down to be exceptionally didactic.
How do you forgetfulness because you've got an extra 2 this week, my friend?
What do you do regarding your marketing? Because I mean, what kind of, if you don't mind, what kind of numbers are you getting now? I mean, you've been going 2 years. Are you like in the millions yet? Or?
I'm told that we don't share numbers. Like I was like, I said to people, like, is this something that we do? And apparently we don't share numbers. I won't share exact numbers, but what I will tell you. So I mean,
I don't find it.
You know what it is? I suppose it's inspiration for us to know that there's a path to go on and there's numbers to come.
It's a tricky thing with numbers. Here's the thing. It's just me and my mom right now listening. I'm kidding. The interesting thing about numbers is, so first of all, understanding that podcast is a niche. Niche. What you're getting on television numbers, radio numbers, all of that is you're going for like national reach or city-wide reach, whatever it is, community reach. Podcasting is a niche medium. And even in a conversation I had with a team in the US, they said it's not important necessarily the size of your audience, but what you do and the engagement with that audience.
Exactly.
So if you have 100 listeners, and those are an engaged 100 listeners, 80 of those 100 listeners, if you tell them to subscribe or click like, they click like. If you ask them a question, they're engaged. That's 10 times better than having an audience of 2,000. I mean, not audience of 10,000, sorry. like a following of 10,000. That's maybe there by but they're not engaged.
They might catch one show in every 10 or something,
Hey?
They might just catch maybe one of your podcasts every 10 shows that you do, or they'll probably never click like in their life, but even though they watch and listen.
Exactly, 100%. So yeah, if that kind of makes sense. I mean, although I would love 10,000 followers, like that would be amazing, or 10,000, whatever. So you if you've got 100, like use that 100. Find out information from that 100, because that's your community and that's where you're going to get information from. Yeah. Back to numbers, your question around numbers. It's all about growth. So it's targeted growth. If you're starting off 10, you launch your podcast today, you have 10 listens or 10 downloads, and in 2 months' time, you've gotten 20. That's growth. That's 100%. Not like, oh, I didn't start off with 1,000. That's you've grown.
You've grown, man. Absolutely.
That as well. So I'm not exactly going to answer the question on numbers, but I will say this. I will say the interesting difference between my two I can speak specifically to In My 20s and the podcast sessions, as my approach for them have been very different. In My 20s, completely organic growth, but it was targeted specifically for people between the ages of 20 and 30. Yeah. So that's already super niche. Yeah. And while the following on Instagram isn't high, the listenership is almost double, maybe if not more, than our Instagram following, which means the people who are listening to my podcast aren't necessarily on social media. They're listening and have subscribed to other podcasts.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Yeah, because you can, I mean, obviously you can subscribe to it. So for example, our cousin, Graham, he listens to the podcast or watches the video every week, and he's got the podcast on his phone. So I know of at least 3 people who I'm just on my side who are tuning in every week and listening. But it's just interesting to know, because I suppose once you start the journey, obviously I do a lot of marketing with small businesses, and one of the things I always say to people is focus on the end goal. You know, what is the end goal? What do you want those numbers to look like? What's going to make you go, yeah? And you're right, most certainly it is about engagement. And that's where you do have content within the podcast which is going to cause a reaction or someone to take an action. But interesting.
But there's so many ways around marketing. I mean, there's making use of video now and putting it on YouTube, or writing a short article about it, and in your SEO, and that helps. Small clips on Instagram or Twitter or whatever it is. I'm not super great on social media. Sometimes I forget that it's there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to post. I've created
Schedule. Scheduling. Seriously, batch content creation and scheduling. It will save you time. I mean, I set up campaigns for people where they have scheduled their social media 2 months in advance. So because we know what we're going to say, we create it all, just put it out there, and then all you got to focus on then is engagement. But schedule, batch content creation and scheduling.
Key. Everyone. I mean, when it comes to doing it, I'm like, last minute. I work best under pressure. I don't. I just leave everything to the last minute.
Connect with me later on, and we'll have a chat sometime later on in the week or early next week.
Okay, fantastic.
Great. Okay. Enough with the podcast stuff, because we want to go back to our questions. You had the easy time now. Now we go back into the serious stuff. No. What I want to ask you, now what I want to ask you in it is because, obviously we're Europeans and we live in Europe. So say, for example, I was curious and to say, I want to move back to the motherland. What would you recommend for me if I said, I want to go back to South Africa? What would you recommend? Would you say, actually, it's a good idea, you should come here, it's a great life? Or would you say, oh, well, you know what? You're probably better off where you are right now. There's too much upheaval and it's not safe. Crime is up. What would you say?
Sure. So this is quite a layered question when you talk about the motherland, because which motherland are you talking about? That's the first question. And what does the motherland actually mean to you? And what is your connection to this so-called mother?
Where my people are. I want to go where my people are, where I don't have to go out on the street.
So what are you going to do? Are you going to arrive and just start high-fiving everyone and be like, I'm back.
You don't know him. That's exactly what he's going to do.
That's exactly what I'm going to do.
You're back from where?
Yes.
A 400-year absence. I think this is where he's going with this.
I suppose. I mean, how many countries are in Africa?
57.
Yeah. So when you say go back to Africa, you're absolutely right, Rutendo. It's which part of Africa are you talking about?
Are you a North Africa person? Are you a Southern Africa? Are you an
Where it's
Eastern?
warm.
West
Where it's
Africa?
warm.
Let me know. Are you on where? Okay, so in all honesty, like I really South Africa is what we're talking about right now. Love staying in South Africa. I have traveled to both places in Europe and been to the US. The concept of, you know what you know, that's the thing. Every time I've traveled as a tourist. So I would go overseas and be like, oh, this is great, this is a tourist, but you don't live there. So understanding what it lives to be in a place is one thing. I love so many elements. We have great weather. The snow looks pretty from a distance. We don't get snow, but I'm saying
that's how to keep it.
Snow looks great from a distance, but when you're in it, it's like, guys, this is really cold. Like, this is not great. I don't do well in the cold as well. So the heat is great. People are so friendly. Like, people are genuinely, in comparison to certain places I've been overseas, Africans in general, okay, this is where I'll generalize. Africans in general are the nicest people that you would probably possibly meet as well. Yes, depending on which country you go to, variations of niceness, but there is such a warmth to, it's in our culture, in our DNA. Africa is all about community. Being African is about community. In South Africa, they say Ubuntu, which is, all about, it's us as a collective. Even with the way you grow up, you're not raised singly by yourself. It's not, what am I going to get? It's not, how am I going to thrive? It's how do we raise up a community? How do we build a community?
It takes a village to raise a child.
It takes a village to raise a child. That's really the essence of being African, is the community. I know we spoke about music earlier on, but I think it's one of the most beautiful elements of being, I hate saying being African, but it is, because it runs in all of our bones and all of our veins, is the music element. Yeah. Music is a form of, not that kind of music. Music, no, I'm kidding. But music is a form of, like, it's in our DNA, it's in our blood, it's a form of expression. So everything. We sing and dance when we are happy. Yeah. We sing when we are in mourning. Yeah. It's just this kind of music that you don't. It's so interesting here, especially when you go. Okay, so in Shona in Zim, you'll go Kumusha. So it's like when you go back home, like to the rural areas. Not even the rural areas, but just in general, like when you're within the Black communities. People just start singing, and the harmonies that come in, and you're like, no one teaches you, no one gives you a sheet of paper and says, this is where you sing. Now, when people go low, you go high.
Let us know.
You know, your body just knows what to do, and it's an emotional experience. So why come? Just come. So come visit, and then just stay, and then just be like, oh, it's home now.
I suppose, I mean, I kind of understand what Wayne's saying, but I suppose every part of the world has got its own set of issues. If you're looking to move to another country, well, after 2 weeks, your tourist money's run out. How are you going to live? Do you have to get a visa to stay there? Will people employ you? You're a foreigner in their country. Why should I give you a job when there's a local man here who can do the same? You know what I mean? So it ain't as easy to say, yeah, man, let me just get up and move. I think there's a lot of planning involved. And with Africa being the size of what it is, I suppose the only way you could say your motherland way was if you was to trace your ancestors back to where they got dragged off the boat or put on the boat and say, well, where did they start from? And that's the only way you'd actually say. Because I do know, I think was it Ghana? Ghana? Was that a country on the West Coast? So that's where...
Is it West?
Yeah, so that's where a lot of trafficking went from. Well, I've seen Ghanaians, I've known a few Ghanaians, I thought, they look like me, man. They look still got the same shaped head. You know what I mean? So maybe I'm Ghanaian by definition, even though Ghana wouldn't have been called Ghana.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? But it's amazing, man. I think a lot of Europeans have got no idea about Africa. They class it as one big country. They don't.
Yeah.
They just don't understand it. This is like this is a diverse, multicolored continent, which offers the greatest beauty, and you know that's it.
Also, I think also like your viewpoints on the world. So it's just like sometimes, like not sometimes, it is very like worrisome. It bothers me a lot sometimes to see the images, even today, that are portrayed of various African countries. Yeah. There's poverty in almost every single country you'll go to in the world.
Yes.
It's just you display that. So you hardly ever see the poverty-stricken areas of the US, but they are there.
There's loads. Absolutely.
Exactly. But when you're talking about certain African countries, like the media sometimes
false narrative, isn't it?
This is what it is. It must be like that. No, we have bustling cities. We
have. When I stayed in I can't remember. I think I stayed in Dubai, and they were showing, because I didn't realise how much colour was in Dubai for some reason. I just thought it'd be all Europeans. I've gone there and it's pure colour. It's beautiful. It's like and they're working and they're doing their thing and they're making money. But I was watching one of the channels and it was showing. I think it was Nigel. I think it was South Africa actually. It was showing the city, one of the cities. And I'm looking, I'm thinking, whoa, look at the skyscraper. We've got to run them clean. Everyone's wearing suits and looking sharp. I'm thinking, hold on a minute. Why aren't they showing more of this when they portray, this great continent on? And it's just a false narrative. It's almost, obviously I don't want to go down that Black Lives Matter thing, but, they're still trying to show this false narrative of, yeah, man, we've got to feel sorry for the Africans because they can't, they can't do anything like what us Europeans can. And the reality is, there's parts of Africa that have moved past Europe now.
Way past, especially in medicine and stuff like that as well.
Medicine, scientists, educated people. But unfortunately, we don't get to hear those celebrations as loudly as we should.
Usually. Because the time we usually get to hear it is when some guys from Europe has bought a trademark or copyright over whatever it is that in the first place. And I'm not just saying that as a we know so well. We've discussed on the show, and you've put things on in the group, Nigel, where we've had to start looking through the books and showcasing what Black people have done, start celebrating them, because the truth of the matter is, if you took away the civil rights movement in the US and you took away maybe a few high-flying sports athletes and musicians, then who are the Black heroes that you actually do know about? We've got Nelson Mandela or Muhammad Ali and these kind of people. Then I'm a bit lost myself, and I'm being honest, and I don't feel like I'm being naive or ignorant to history in general, because I know a lot about European history. I know a lot about American history. The point is that it was deliberately not taught to us, and it kind of leads me on to what I did want to ask you, Rutendo, about and what Nigel alluded to when he was talking about false narratives. Like, what is the perception that you have in South Africa of what maybe people from Europe or America think about South Africa and South Africans? Do you think it's a positive thing? Do you feel like when you travel that, when you say you're South African, it's a positive thing? Or do you feel like people don't understand or know a lot about South Africa or South African people?
Interesting and tricky one. So I guess it also just comes down to the communities or the people who you've surrounded yourself in. So I do have family in both Europe and in the US. So when I travel to those places, it's not like the concept of someone coming from South Africa is not like a weird thing. So I do have to, one of my most memorable moments in the US was trying to explain to someone where South Africa was on the map.
Oh my God.
It's just like, I'm not having I think I was just getting upset because she wasn't getting it. She wasn't
right.
Anyway. So
they're not the brightest.
But but you know what? The thing is, I mean, coming back to education and stuff, we know a lot about, and Simon, you're saying it now, like, we also know a lot about European history and what our perceptions of the US are. We haven't been fully taught a lot of, properly taught South African history and properly taught African history.
Yeah. Wait there. You don't get taught African history in Africa.
African history and I mean like quintessential African history.
Proper African
history. I mean, our education was created by the West. So how are they going to tell Africans
about Africa? Yeah, exactly.
And then again, part of like the decolonization of the education systems are like, can we actually just learn our proper true history and legitimately, and not learn about everything that happened overseas?
That's really interesting. And obviously, you can't speak for the whole of Africa, but it would be interesting to speak to some of the other, or someone from some of the other African countries to find out what they're being taught. Because I always see African people as being proud because they come, wherever they go, they know that they can trace their roots right back. Boom, 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 boom. My great grandfather was so and so tribal. You know what I mean? And I think that in itself, that's so much power within that. But it'd be interesting to know, for example, in Nigeria, whether they're taught Nigerian history or whether it's been kind of, because it was a colony, one of the British colonies, whether that English history's been mixed up a little bit. And it's, oh yes, we did this for you and we did that for you, and oh well, ha ha ha. That'd be interesting to find out.
But you're talking about, so there are two different histories that you're talking about. You're talking about, on the one aspect, the cultural history, right? You're taught within your culture, and that is ingrained. Like that, people are very proud about their cultural history. What I'm talking about is the history in the history books.
Yes.
So in terms of like, why is the first thing? I mean, I can talk about like South African history when you're taught from the first person who settled in South Africa. But that's not where the start of our history is. Like we should be going way back, and that should be the first thing about, right? So our perception of where we come from shouldn't start with the center of the West. It should start African.
Absolutely.
And then how much in that history does one go into as well? So also down to the books that we're reading. Like, yes, it's great to know the literature of like, Shakespeare and all that stuff. It's beautiful and that's great. But let's get more like African author books into the schools. Again, it comes down to identity. What is your identity ingrained in if you are not seeing more of yourself in what you're learning?
I think the best way to say that maybe is how much of your identity remains after everything that's been done to strip it away, because it has been a very deliberate process, whether that be from moving people away from Africa and stopping them from dancing and stopping them from speaking their native tongue and stopping people from being able to read, and basically you indoctrinate them with the new set of rules. It's almost like a complete mind reset without the need of some kind of brainwashing technique. You literally just tell them each and every day, no, your name is now Stephen, and your name, and now you do this and you speak this language and you read these books, and Columbus discovered Americas in 1492 and so on and so forth. And it would be, I think, really interesting, now we've tried to get your perspective, to actually work out, in other, not just African countries, but in countries around the world, especially colonized countries, how their history is taught to them in the modern day, and if it has been updated, because that was something that was really, like I say, it was really crucial that I found out from you. Do you learn basically the English curriculum or the UK curriculum, or do you have this your own curriculum? And what I didn't actually envisage was the fact that you said no, it was actually denied to black people originally. They didn't get the English curriculum. It was actually denied to them, so they had African teachers teaching them African subjects. It's just interesting to see how that may have changed in different countries around the world now, post colonization.
There was something I was going to say, but I forgot.
What I want to add to that is I can't believe that they took away our names and more importantly, they took away our religions. Because I've recently become very interested in the true African religion and where our religion is, because obviously we're told that Jesus Christ is this dude came from somewhere. Doesn't even fit the description of the guy who actually came from somewhere. And we've been told this story, and I'm like, hold on, but wait there. They went to Africa. The guys in Europe went to Africa, and all these African people who worship something. They worship something.
Different things in different places, like the same even in the UK. You know, religion before Christianity or Catholicism was very. If you was in the southwest of England, it was a lot of paganism and stuff like that. If you went to other parts of the country, there was other. You know, they prayed to different things. So I think it just depends on, again, what period in history you're talking about. Because if you're talking about literally at the point of slavery, which I think you are in that, then, you know, there's going to have been a lot of religions depending on where you are. You just remember the vastness of Africa in general. So like Nigel was saying, in Ghana, there would be something probably very different. So there would be in South Africa. That's just me assuming, but
and you got to remember as well is, you know, all these lovely names that these African countries have been given weren't actually the names that they were to begin with.
Exactly. You can't trace anything. You can't even be like, oh, yeah, that was this.
Well, that's the thing. You know, I suppose if you go far back enough, it probably was one country, and it was just right. Then people lived there, they lived there. It was other people who come along and said, "Well, we have to put a bada in there now because
actually,
my teeth tomato and then keep teeth in my grapes. So put a bada there, one water."
You know, I was going to say, you know what, Africa used to be called Ethiopia, and that's like that was the original name to Africa before they called it Africa. Ethiopia is the first,
They do that?
Is that right?
Dude, facts, man, facts.
Did you say Ethiopia?
Yeah.
I know, so I don't know about that, but I know Azania, Ethiopia is a country.
It's a country, but that was the name of Africa. That was the name of a large portion of Africa, at least. A large portion was called Ethiopia.
I know Azania, I know for the large part, I think kind of like the southern part of Africa was called Azania. I know that.
Oh, okay.
Ethiopia.
You're on about
the biblical periods. It was Al-Kebulan.
Listen, we need to research more before a show. Anyway, what I reckon. Sorry, I did want to just ask something else, because obviously we've touched on a couple of deep things, but I did want to ask you about your personal music interests and what sort of music you listen to. Do you listen to a lot of South African music, or do you listen to a lot of what I would call popular music? You know, US Billboard. I'm not going to say crap, but stuff.
This is like my favorite question to answer. Thank you so much, because I will tell you, I wouldn't say it's like a weird taste in music, but it's not the conventional thing of music. I love film scores. If you ever see me behind my computer, best believe I'm blasting a film score, but I'm dancing like I'm in a club, but I'm dancing to like film scores, and I'm dancing to like all this classical music, and like it's wild sometimes for me, because it's a jam. Like, that is the music that speaks to my soul, is like orchestral arrangements, film scores. There's just
yes.
So you must love Hans Zimmer then, like these kind of people.
It's magical. I mean, obviously I do listen to, I mean, obviously there's the commercial music, you know, knowing the hits, because when eventually one does go out, you also want to sing along. You don't want to be the person just here. You also want to be lyrically with people. So I do listen to a lot of commercial music. I love Afro beats. Like, that is really cool.
Seriously, man, that's the best secret that come out of Africa in the last 10 years. When I started hearing Black Coffee and people like that, I was like, hold on a minute, where have these guys been hiding? Why have they not showed me this music before? And trust me, if I go through my phone now, it's full of albums from African artists, South African artists. It's like, that's me, man. I feel that music, because they put in elements of tribal, like original kind of beats. You know what I mean? I can see them dancing to it, man, just like doing their thing, man, because they're happy. Seriously, man. Afro beats, man.
Yeah, no, it's a jam. It's a jam. Yeah, but that's in a nutshell. Yeah, pretty much me. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, then we'll probably wrap this up. We would love to get you back on so we can do a part 2 of this.
Amazing.
You have to wait a couple of weeks though, because we're really full.
I'm going to find you on Facebook now, Rutendo.
You have to wait a couple of weeks, unless I can get these guys to do a second show, man, which is like hard and getting, finding a needle in a haystack. But it's been very informative, and I'm thankful for everything you can give us. You know, you blessed us with information and stuff that we didn't know.
I hope it, for those things. I mean, because you always get people who are like, actually, what she said was incorrect. I'm kidding. Most of it was actually correct.
Yeah. The thing is, your experience is based on where you are and how you've lived and the countries you've been to. We could get a guy on from Morocco next week, and he might say completely different things to you based on his own reality, what he's going through. So. But it's nice. It's been nice because I have met a few white South Africans in my time. I've met a lot of Zimbabweans, but it's really nice to kind of meet a black South African. And sounds like you got things going on over there, girl. Good, man. It's positive, man.
Doing well, man.
Good to hear. Good to hear.
Anyway, anyone got anything? Let's start with our guest today, Rutendo. Have you got anything to promote? Anything you want to say?
Of course, always. What am I going to promote? No, I'm kidding. First of all, I would love to say thank you guys so much for this. So this is really funny. Not really funny, but this is like my first time that I've been interviewed on someone's podcast. So it's been really cool. Realize that
I was interesting. That's good.
But it was fun. And yeah, you guys, this is so great because also I also just speak to a number. Like I never also just have like all guys set up. This feels like a panel. Like I feel like I could just join your team. I'll just be the person who's here. Just throws a bunch. Think about it. Team talk. Think about it. I'm kidding.
There might be a space. I mean, there's always a space open if you want to come and join us. Believe me, if you want. I've got so many ideas. I'm looking for creative people to join the movement.
Yeah.
It's all about collaboration.
Yeah. But thank you guys so much. And then I guess the only promotion thing that I would just throw out there is the podcast sessions, digital magazine.
Yep.
I would love we're trying to just build a community around it so people could subscribe, download it. We're not gonna spam people's inbox once a week. It's literally gonna be once a month that we're like, hey, we're releasing this podcast magazine. And if people want to contribute, then it's definitely, it doesn't matter where you are in your podcast journey, whether you're starting, we would love to read about your starting journey, or if you're advanced and you want to talk about something specific, please do.
Fantastic.
You can just follow me at the podcast sessions. I think I might be the only.
Yeah, we're gonna post in our group and try and get some more people to be involved in it. And obviously, we're gonna be involved in it, of course. And I guess Simon's also gonna be involved in it with his side project. So, yeah, man. And Simon, do you wanna string on?
I just wanted to just thank you again, Rutendo, for coming on. I think you've sort of illuminated. Definitely illuminated the room and shed a lot of light on a few things. I definitely agree with Alstallio that we need a part 2. We've definitely enjoyed having you on. And I think what's happening in general over here is people are focusing a lot more now on Africa, but not in the traditional sense where it's just all, advertisements that are just not even advertisements, but charity appeals and stuff. People are starting to look at Africa in a different way. And I think what would be really positive is like these guys said, is if we can start to have a little bit look closely into each other's communities and just see where that leads us. And that's an interesting journey. So nothing business wise to promote. I just want to promote collaboration and unity between us and, as Alstallio would say, the motherland.
Motherland, I'm going to my motherland.
The motherland is, I just want to say on a quick, finishing note about the motherland. Alstallio spent 6 months in Brazil, and the thing that he probably felt straight away was that connection to be around black people. So I think it's just feeling like he's around people who share the same values and thoughts as he does, and that. So yeah, man, big up all the people in the world, man. Let's give a shout out to our black people who have been really struggling, man, and getting a rough deal, man. Let's celebrate it instead of discriminate.
Yeah, Nigel.
Rutendo. Thank you so much for coming on. It's good to speak to you. Definitely insightful. So much more to speak about. I've friend requested you on Facebook, so we'll carry on the discussion, man, around marketing and what you're doing. I'll tell you what we're doing, and if you can rise together, so be it, girl. So be it.
All right, man. Thanks, guys. Like I said, we always dance out toward the track a little bit, but I won't leave it running the whole time. Remember, keep listening to the Blackopolypse podcast media. We've got the series coming up, the mini-series. We've got the podcast, Live in Germany, Family Affair, and this one. And yeah, man, we're doing a lot of stuff. And we're going to get her on full-time, I think.
You're definitely recruited, girl.
All right, guys. I'll see you guys next week, yeah?
Nice one.
All right.